Once upon a time, in the lively city of Ajuju, there lived a prince called Prince Boma. Prince Boma loved to steal. It started as a small thing, a sweet from a vendor or a shiny trinket from a friend. But as time passed, he stole bigger things. The prince thought he was clever, sneaking around and taking what he wanted without being caught. However, he did not realize that every small act of stealing was building a shadow over his bright smile. King Agatha, Boma's father, ruled the city with wisdom and kindness. He often gathered his people to share stories and teach them about honesty and respect. Boma would sit quietly during these gatherings, his heart heavy with guilt. He loved his father but couldn't help but feel he was letting him down. One day, while strolling through the market, Boma spotted a beautiful necklace hanging from a merchant's store. The necklace shimmered in the sunlight, and Boma's eyes widened with greed. He wanted it. No, he needed it without thinking about the cost. Little did he know, this desire would lead him down a dark path. As he admired the necklace, a voice interrupted his thoughts. "It's lovely, isn't it?" a woman said, smiling. Boma turned to see an old woman with sharp eyes. "Be careful, young prince. Not all that glitters is gold." Boma chuckled, dismissing her warning. He was determined to have that necklace. King Agatha was well respected among the people of Ajuju. Every evening, he would sit in the palace garden, surrounded by flowers, teaching the young and old about the value of life. Honesty is the foundation of trust, he would say. Boma often listened to his father's word, but found it difficult to follow them. One day, as they walked together through the market, the king paused at a stall selling fruits. "See how the vendor smiles when someone buys its goods. That smile comes from honesty," King Agatha explained. Boma nodded but didn't quite understand. To him, taking something without paying felt thrilling. That night, as Boma lay in bed, he thought about his father's teachings. He wanted to make his father proud, but felt the weight of his secret like a heavy stone in his heart. The prince closed his eyes, hoping to dream of a world where he could be honest without the temptation to steal. The next day, Boma returned to the market, his heart racing at the thought of the necklace. It sparkled brightly, calling out to him. He glanced around, ensuring no one was watching. His heart pounded as he reached for it, thinking about how beautiful it would look around his neck. "Just one little take," he whispered to himself. "No one will notice." But deep down, he felt a small voice telling him it was wrong. Boma shook his head, trying to ignore it. The thrill of stealing was too exciting to resist. He grabbed the necklace and slipped it into his pocket, feeling a rush of victory. As he walked away, however, a strange feeling washed over him like a storm brewing inside. But he pushed it aside, convinced that no one would ever find out. That night, as Boma admired the necklace in his room, a chilling wind blew through the window. The room darkened, and suddenly a figure appeared. An old woman with piercing eyes and a long flowing robe. It was the witch. "Foolish prince," she hissed. "You thought you could steal from me without consequences?" Boma trembled in fear. He had heard stories about this witch, how she could cast terrible curses on those who wronged her. I didn't mean to," he stammered, backing away. The witch's eye glimmered with anger. "You will pay for your greed. From now on, you will walk the earth as a giant native fowl, clucking and scratching like the lowest bird until you learn the value of honesty." Boma gasped, feeling a strange heat coursing through his body. As the witch waved her hand, darkness enveloped him and he felt himself shrinking. Boma looked down, horrified to see feathers sprouting from his arms and a beak replacing his mouth. "No, please stop," he cried, but his voice came out as a loud cluck. He flapped his wings in panic, realizing that he was turning into a giant fowl. The witch cackled with delight. "Now you will learn what it means to be humble. Your journey begins in the marketplace tomorrow." As the witch disappeared, Boma felt the last bit of his human self fade away. He was alone, trapped in the body of a fowl, filled with despair about what he had done. The next morning, the sun rose over Ajuju, and the market was alive with chatter. Boma, now a giant fowl, woke up in the dusty corner of the market. People walked by, oblivious to his plight. He looked around, trying to call for help, but all that came out were clucks and squawks. The stores were filled with fresh produce, fabrics, and beautiful trinkets, but Boma felt small and insignificant. Children laughed and played, while the vendors shouted about their goods. Suddenly, a group of kids spotted him. "Look at that big chicken," one of them shouted, pointing. Boma flapped his wings, trying to run, but the children chased after him, laughing and shouting. He felt humiliated, wishing he could disappear. As Boma tried to hide, he realized he couldn't escape. He was a fowl now, clucking and flapping around like the birds he used to admire from afar. The market was chaotic, with people rushing about, but he could only watch from the ground. Boma tried to blend in with the other birds, but it was impossible. The other native fowls scratched in the dirt, begging at scraps of food, while he could only think of how he had once been a prince. He flapped his wings in frustration, squawking loudly as the kids continued to chase him. "Look at him go," one child shouted, giggling as Boma ran in circles, dodging playful hands. The laughter pierced his heart, reminding him of the dignity he had lost. With every cluck, he remembered the life he had taken for granted, the love of his father, the admiration of his people, and the simple joy of being a prince. Feeling defeated, Boma wandered off to a quieter corner of the market. He perched on a low wall, watching the vendors pack up their stores. As the sun began to set, the market grew quieter, and he saw a kind-looking woman named Mama Nkechi collecting her leftover vegetables. "Poor thing," she said, noticing Boma's forlorn state. "You look lost." Boma wanted to respond, to tell her he was not just a fowl, but a prince under a curse. Instead, he let out a soft cluck, and Mama Nkechi frowned, shaking her head. "Even the birds seem sad these days," she sighed, tossing a few scraps of vegetable on the ground. Boma watched her, feeling a pang of guilt. He realized that he was now one of the many creatures he had once ignored. He begged at the scraps, testing the bitterness of his situation. As the days passed, Boma adjusted to his life as a fowl. He spent his mornings scratching through the dirt and his afternoons dodging children in the markets. He no longer felt the thrill of stealing. Instead, he began to see the value of what he had overlooked. Boma made friends with the other fowls, learning to find food and shelter. They taught him how to be part of the world around him. Each day, he noticed more of the people, their struggles, their joys, and how hard they worked. He saw how Mama Nkechi cared for her family, even with little money. One evening, while perched on a fence, Boma witnessed a young girl named Ada share her meal with a hungry stray dog. "You can have some of my rice," she said, smiling brightly. Boma's heart swelled with admiration. He clucked softly, realizing that true kindness came from sharing what little you had. Days turned into weeks, and Boma grew stronger in his new form. Though he longed to be human again, he began to understand humility and compassion. With every day, he became more aware of how his previous actions affected others. The prince, who had once taken without thinking, was slowly becoming a better being. One sunny afternoon, Boma was foraging near Mama Nkechi's store when he felt a familiar chill in the air. The old witch appeared before him, her eyes glittering with mischief. "Well, well, my feathered friend," she said, circling him. "How do you like your new life?" Boma squawked, attempting to communicate, but all that came out were frustrated clucks. The witch chuckled. "I can see you've learned a few lessons, but it is not enough. If you wish to return to your human form, you must prove you have truly changed." "What do I have to do?" Boma clucked desperately, feeling hope surge within him. "The market is full of people in need. Show me that you can help them without expecting anything in return. Only then will you have a chance to regain your true self." The witch waved her hand, disappearing into thin air, leaving Boma alone with his thoughts. He felt both excited and terrified. How could a giant fowl help anyone? But deep down, he knew he had to try. The next day, Boma noticed a commotion near the market square. A young girl was crying, holding a broken basket filled with spilled fruits. It was Ada. He watched as people walked by, ignoring her tears. Something stirred within him. With a surge of determination, Boma waddled over to Ada. He began to peck gently at the fruits scattered on the ground, trying to attract her attention. Ada looked up in surprise. "What are you doing, big chicken?" she asked, her sadness fading slightly. Boma clucked and nudged the fruit towards her. Ada giggled, realizing he was trying to help. "Thank you, you silly bird," she said, gathering the fruits with a smile. Boma felt a warmth inside. It was nice to help people. As days went by, Boma continued to assist Ada in the market. He would collect fruits for her and even chase away pesky flies from her store. Ada began to notice how clever and kind the giant fowl was. They formed a bond, and soon Boma found joy in their friendship. "Maybe you are not just a bird," Ada said one day, patting him gently. "You seem special." Boma clucked happily, feeling understood and cherished. With Ada's encouragement, Boma devised a plan to help more people in the market. Together, they began organizing small acts of kindness. They would gather leftover food from vendors and share it with those in need. Boma used his size to help carry heavier baskets and protect Ada from the heat of the sun. One day, as they helped an elderly man who had fallen, Ada said, "You know, I think you might be more than a fowl. You have a heart like a prince." Boma clucked, feeling pride swell within him. As they walked together, Boma realized how meaningful it felt to help others. Each small act of kindness filled his heart with a purpose he had never known before. He began to wonder if the witch was watching, waiting to see if he truly changed. Despite his newfound purpose, Boma still felt fear creeping back into his heart. What if he never turned back into a prince? What if the witch was right? The pressure of his transformation weighed heavily on him. He had learned humility, but could he truly become the person he needed to be? One evening, while resting on a rooftop with Ada, Boma shared his worries. "I feel scared that I won't be able to prove myself," he clucked softly. Ada looked at him with understanding. "It's okay to be scared, but look how far you've come. You helped others and you are kind. You just need to keep trying." Boma felt encouraged by her words. He had to face his fears and trust that he was on the right path. The next day, he woke up determined to help even more people. Weeks passed and Boma and Ada's effort began to change the market. People began to notice the giant fowl and the girl who was always with him. They shared stories of how he had helped them, and Boma felt a sense of community he had never experienced before. Then, one afternoon, the witch returned. "Impressive, my little bird," she said, her voice echoing through the market. "You have shown kindness, but can you show courage?" "What do you mean?" Boma clucked, feeling nervous. "You will face a challenge. Help the one person in the market who needs it most. Only then will you prove your worth and perhaps regain your true form." Boma felt a rush of determination. He had already faced so much and he was already ready for the final stage. He looked at Ada, who nodded in support. Together, they would find that person in need. As Boma and Ada searched the market, they heard whispers about a widow who had fallen ill. "She has no one to care for her," a vendor said. "No one has the time." Boma's heart sank. "We have to help her," he clucked, feeling a surge of purpose. They hurried to the widow's home, where they found her weak and alone. Boma felt the weight of her loneliness and fear. Together, Boma and Ada gathered supplies from the market, bringing food and medicine to the widow. They sat with her, sharing stories and laughter, lifting her spirits. As they cared for her, Boma realized how much their friendship meant. After a few days, the widow began to recover. One morning, as they sat by her side, she smiled brightly and said, "You have saved me. I don't know how I can ever repay you." Boma looked at her, feeling something shift within him. "It's not about repayment," he clucked softly. "It's about kindness." Suddenly, the witch appeared again. "You have done well, Boma. You have shown courage, love, and humility. But there is one last truth you must accept." "What truth?" Boma asked, feeling anxious. "The truth that true nobility lies not just in being a prince, but in how you treat others, regardless of your form." Boma felt the weight of the witch's words. He looked around at the markets, the people who had come together, the joy he had experienced. In the moment, he realized he no longer wanted to be a prince just for the sake of power. He wanted to be someone who made a difference, no matter what form it took. He had found purpose and joy in helping others, and that was worth more than any title or rare robes. As Boma stood there, the witch smiled knowingly. "You have learned your lessons well, but the choice is still yours. If you wish to return to your human form, you must be willing to carry these lessons with you into your next life. Are you ready for that?" Boma looked at Ada, who had become his best friend and confidant. Her laughter Her kindness and the way she had believed in him gave him courage he needed. He nodded in determination. "Yes, I am ready. I choose to be a better person." With those words, the witch waved her hand and a wild wind of magic surrounded Boma. He felt the familiar warmth washed over him, but this time it was different. It felt like a celebration rather than a punishment. His feathers faded away and he found himself standing upright, fully human once again, in the clothes he had worn as a prince. The crowd gasped, but Boma was no longer the selfish prince who had stolen a necklace. He was a changed man, filled with humility and gratitude. "Thank you," he said to the witch, who stood before him. Her expression softened. "Remember, Boma, you carry your lessons in your heart. Use your power wisely." With that, the witch vanished, leaving behind a sparkle in the air. Boma turned to see Ada watching him with wide eyes. "You did it! You are back," she said, running to hug him. "I couldn't have done it without you, Ada," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." From that day forward, Boma took on the role of a true leader in Ajuju. He walked alongside the people in the market, helping them with their needs and encouraging kindness among all. He shared the story of his transformation with everyone, inspiring others to look beyond appearances and recognize the strength of the heart. The market flourished as the community grew closer, and the once self-centered prince became known as the people's prince. His laughter filled the air, and he always made time for a kind word or a helping hand. As the season changed, Boma and Ada became inseparable friends. They continued to help those in need, and Boma learned that true nobility wasn't about titles or riches, but about how one chose to live their life. However, the tale doesn't end here. Boma often thought about the lessons he had learned as fowl. He knew there were still many changes ahead. The world was vast, and many still suffering. He vowed to continue his journey of kindness and compassion, carrying the spirit of the fowl within him.